My wife secretly went away for 14 days with her work husband. When she returned, I asked her a question that petrified her. Do you know what disease he has? She rushed to the doctor, but it was already too late. I had my arms deep, up to the elbows in the engine of my 1987 Mustang when I heard Claire's BMW pull into the driveway. The familiar purr of German engineering mixed with the click of her heels on the concrete. I did not look up from the carburetor I was rebuilding. I had not looked at her much since she returned from her corporate seminar 3 days ago. Hello, stranger, she called out, her voice carrying that forced cheerfulness she had perfected over our 15 years of marriage. Still playing with that old pile of junk. I wiped my hands on a greasy rag and finally turned around. Claire stood there in her businesswoman suit, briefcase in one hand, phone in the other. She looked every bit the successful lawyer she had become. Beautiful as always, with that sharp intelligence in her green eyes that had first attracted me in college, but something had changed in her eyes over the last few months. Something cold and distant. Just keeping busy, I said, matching her fake smile with my own. How was your day at Donovan and Klein? Any interesting cases? She shrugged, already heading toward the house. The usual corporate nonsense. I am exhausted. I think I will take a hot bath and go to bed early. I watched her walk away, noting how she avoided my gaze, how her shoulders tensed when I mentioned the law firm. Claire had always been a terrible liar, which made her recent transformation into a master of deception all the more impressive. Once she disappeared inside, I pulled out my phone and opened the file I had been compiling for weeks. Screenshots, bank statements, credit card bills, hotel receipts, all the little breadcrumbs she had left behind during her 14-day getaway with her colleague Brandon Whitaker. Brandon Whitaker. Even his name sounded straight out of a soap opera. Senior partner at the firm. Divorced, driving a vintage Porsche 911. That probably cost more than I make in 2 years. The kind of guy who wears Italian suits and talks about wine pairings at dinner parties. I scrolled through the evidence on my phone. The hotel in Napa Valley where they were supposed to attend a legal conference. Except the conference had been cancelled months earlier. The receipts from romantic restaurants for two. The photos Claire had posted on social media, carefully cropped to hide her companion, but showing just enough background for me to piece together their itinerary. The final piece had arrived yesterday, when I guessed Claire's cloud storage password based on knowing her habits for 15 years. I am not proud of it, but 15 years of marriage and a background in industrial engineering had taught me enough about her routines to figure it out. What I found there turned my stomach. Text messages, hundreds of them. Claire and Brandon planning their getaway, discussing hotels, sharing intimate details about their connection. The worst part was not the private nature of the messages. It was the casual way they talked about me. Brian is so clueless. Claire had written, he really believes I am working late all these nights. Brandon's reply, poor guy, he probably thinks you are reviewing contracts instead of enjoying our time together. Their laughter shone through even in text form. He thought I was pathetic, a project manager at Summit Industrial Solutions, married to a high-powered lawyer, too unaware to notice his wife had crossed serious boundaries right under my nose. They were wrong about the unaware part. I closed the phone and looked at the Mustang. My father had given me this car for my 16th birthday, and I had been restoring it ever since. Claire always said it was a waste of time and money, but working with my hands helped me think. And right then I needed to think very carefully about what came next. The old me would have confronted Claire, demanded explanations, begged for another chance, maybe even suggested counseling. The old me believed in honesty, communication, and solving problems together. But the old me had not seen those messages. He had not seen his wife of 15 years mocking him with her colleague. He had not realized that the woman around whom he had built his entire adult life considered him as nothing more than a convenient fool. The new me had different plans. I pulled up Brandon's contact information on my phone. Finding his address had been surprisingly easy. Lawyers love putting their credentials and office locations online. He lived in a luxury condo downtown Cleveland called the Meridian, the kind of place with a doorman and valet service, the kind of place Claire probably dreamed of while she was stuck in our modest suburban home with me in the Cleveland suburbs. Tomorrow was Saturday. Claire would sleep in and spend the afternoon at her book club. Or, at least, that is what she would tell me. Brandon would probably be home, maybe recovering from the wine bar he had visited the night before. I smiled. As I gathered my tools, Claire thought she was playing chess while I was playing checkers. She had no idea I was about to flip the entire chessboard over. The first rule of project management is simple. Identify your objectives, gather your resources, and execute your plan with precision. I had spent my career managing complex industrial projects at Summit Industrial Solutions, coordinating teams, solving problems that others could not handle. This was just another project, a very personal project. I went inside where Claire was already drawing her bath. The sound of the water covered my footsteps as I walked to our bedroom and opened her laptop. She had left it logged in. Another sign of how little suspicion she had. Her calendar showed a client meeting tomorrow afternoon, but I had already checked the firm's schedule. No one was working, which meant she would be with Brandon, probably at his place, probably celebrating another successful deception. Perfect. I closed the laptop and headed down to my basement workshop. If Claire wanted to play games, I was going to show her how a real strategist operates. She thought she held all the cards because she made more money, had more education, and moved in more sophisticated circles. But she had forgotten something important about me, something that had attracted her in the beginning when we were young, and she was impressed by my ability to fix things, to solve problems, to make the impossible possible. I was very, very good at my job, and my job was about to become making Claire Ellis regret every choice she had made over the last 6 months. The water stopped running. Upstairs, Claire must be settling into her bath now, probably texting Brandon about their plans for tomorrow, maybe laughing at some clever thing she had said to throw me off the scent. I opened my toolbox and began selecting what I would need for tomorrow's project. It was going to require precision, timing, and a complete understanding of my target's weaknesses. Fortunately, I had been studying those weaknesses for 15 years. Saturday morning arrived gray and rainy, typical weather for October in Ohio. Claire was still sleeping when I left the house at 8:30 in the morning, supposedly to pick up supplies at the hardware store. Instead, I drove straight to Brandon's building downtown. The Meridian was everything I expected. All glass and steel with a uniform doorman who looked like he stepped out of a Cadillac. I parked across the street and settled in to wait, a cup of coffee in one hand and my phone in the other. Brandon's Porsche sat in the valet area like a monument to a midlife crisis. Cherry red, pristine condition. Probably worth more than my annual salary. The kind of car a man buys when he wants to prove something to the world or pursue someone else's wife. At 10:15 in the morning, Brandon emerged from the building wearing designer jeans and a cashmere sweater. Even on the weekend, the man looked like he stepped out of a magazine. He said something to the valet that made them both laugh, then slipped into his precious car and merged into traffic. I followed at a distance, my old Ford pickup blending invisibly into the morning traffic. Brandon drove like he owned the road, cutting across lanes, not using his turn signal, tailgating anyone who dared to drive the speed limit. The kind of driver who had never done a day of manual labor in his life, who never had to worry about missing work because of a traffic ticket. He pulled into the parking lot of an upscale grocery store in the suburbs. Through my binoculars, I watched him load his cart with expensive wine, imported cheese, fresh flowers. He was preparing for a romantic afternoon with my wife. My phone vibrated with a text from Claire. Book club is ending late today. Do not wait up for dinner. Book club, right? I replied, no problem. I am working on the car anyway. Love you. The lies came easily now. I had practiced. Brandon finished his shopping and drove to a wine bar called the Vineyard Lounge, where he met 2 other men in expensive suits, probably other partners from the firm, maybe divorcees, living the bachelor lifestyle that Brandon was testing out on the side. They ordered a bottle of something that probably cost more than most people's car payments. I did not need to get close enough to hear their conversation. I could picture it perfectly. Brandon bragging about his latest connection, maybe showing pictures of Claire, describing in detail what it was like to pursue a married woman, the kind of talk rich men feel entitled to. While he was celebrating, I headed back to Brandon's building. The valet was on a cigarette break and the doorman was helping an elderly resident with her packages. Security cameras covered the entrance, but the parking garage was another story. I had spent enough time on construction sites to know that underground parking garages were always the weak point in building security. Too many blind spots, too many entrances and exits, too many people coming and going to track everyone effectively. Brandon's parking spot was on the 3rd level, right where the valet had left his precious Porsche. I put on latex gloves and got to work. I applied expanding foam in the exhaust pipe so it would create problems when he tried to start the car later. Next, I placed several pounds of the smelliest fish I could find under the seats and in the air vents so it would create a persistent aroma that would linger for weeks. The final touch was a note written in capital letters on plain paper. People who break trust always face consequences. This is only the beginning. I was back in my truck and heading home within 20 minutes. Brandon was probably still at the wine bar, toasting his cleverness with his friends. Claire was probably at home, getting ready for their afternoon. Together, maybe trying on different outfits to see which one he would prefer. Neither of them had any idea what was coming. I spent the rest of a morning in my workshop preparing phase 2. Claire's laptop was still logged in, and her calendar showed the fake client meeting at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. That gave me 3 hours to set up the next surprise. The beauty of modern technology is the amount of information people voluntarily give away about themselves online. Brandon's social media profiles showed his daily routines, his favorite restaurants, his weekend habits. Claire showed her growing distance from our old friends, her newfound interest in expensive wine and art galleries, interests that aligned perfectly with Brandon's. They thought they were being discreet, but they were actually broadcasting their involvement to anyone who knew where to look. I created a new email account and sent a message to Brandon's ex-wife, whom I had found through public records. The divorce had been finalized 6 months ago, and according to court documents, she had cited irreconcilable differences, but the settlement suggested there was more to it than that. I thought you might be interested to know that Brandon has gone back to his old habits. I wrote, attaching several of the photos I had found, showing him with Claire at various restaurants and hotels. Some people never learn. Next, Iseno similar. The message to the managing partner at Donovan and Klein law firms took ethical violations seriously, especially when they involved partners having inappropriate relationships with associates. It might not end Brandon's career, but it would certainly complicate his life. Around 1:30 in the afternoon, Claire was getting ready to leave. She had chosen a black dress I bought her for our anniversary last year, paired with heels that she claimed made her feet hurt but made her legs look amazing. She was dressing up for Brandon now, wearing our memories like costumes in her new life. I should be back around 10 o'clock, she said, kissing me on the cheek with lips he had probably been kissing all week. Do not wait up if you're tired. Have fun at your meeting, I replied without bothering to look up from my newspaper. I hope it goes well. She paused at the door, perhaps sensing something different in my tone, but her phone buzzed with what was probably a text from Brandon, and she hurried out without another word. I waited 10 minutes, then followed. The drive to Brandon's building gave me time to think about what I was really doing. The old me would have been horrified by this level of deception and manipulation. The old me believed in honesty, working through problems, and giving people the benefit of the doubt. But the old me had been a fool. The old me had trusted his wife completely, never questioned her. Late nights or weekend meetings even felt guilty for the rare moments of suspicion. The old me had built his entire identity around being a good husband, a loyal partner, a man who kept his promises. The old me was gone, replaced by someone harder, smarter, and far less forgiving. Claire's BMW was already in the visitor parking area when I arrived. Through the glass facade of the building, I could see her in the lobby, probably calling Brandon to let her up. She looked nervous, excited, guilty, all the emotions of someone living a double life. I parked where I could monitor both the building entrance and the garage exit. Then I settled in to wait for the real show to begin. Brandon would discover his car problems when he tried to take Claire somewhere romantic for the evening. The smell would hit them as soon as they got in, and the engine trouble would strand them in the garage. They would probably call a tow truck, maybe argue over whose fault it was, and definitely wonder who could have done such a thing. But that was only part one. The real performance would begin when Brandon's ex-wife and his boss started asking questions about his photos. When Claire realized their secret was not as secret as they fought. When they both understood that someone was watching, that someone knew, that someone was playing a much deeper game than they ever imagined. My phone hung. Claire's number. Hey, honey, she said, her voice strained with stress. I'm going to be later than expected. This client is really demanding. In the background, I could hear Brandon's voice, though I could not make out the words. No problem, I said. Take all the time you need. I know how important your work is to you. She hung up quickly, probably eager to get back to her afternoon, but I could hear the tension in her voice, the first crack in her confident facade. The game was just beginning, and I was already winning. Monday morning, the first cracks appeared. Claire came down for breakfast, looking like she had not slept well. Her usually perfect makeup was unable to hide the dark circles under her eyes. She kept checking her phone, frowning at every message she received. Everything okay at work? I asked, buttering my toast with deliberate casualness. Fine, she snapped, then caught herself and forced a smile. Just some office drama. You know how it is. I knew exactly how it was. Brandon's ex-wife had apparently put the photos I sent her to good use. According to the gossip sites that tracked local legal news, she had filed a motion to review their divorce settlement, claiming he had committed fraud by hiding assets and relationships during their proceedings. Meanwhile, the managing partner at Donovan and Klein had scheduled a meeting with Brandon for that afternoon. Officially, it was to maintain professional standards and avoid conflicts of interest. Unofficially, the rumor was already going around the legal community that Brandon Whitaker was in deep trouble. Claire's phone buzzed again. She glanced at it, and her face went pale. I have to go, she said, grabbing her briefcase and heading for the door. I do not know when. I will be home tonight. She was gone before I could answer, leaving her coffee untouched and her breakfast half-eaten. The woman who prided herself on her control and composure was starting to fall apart. I finished my breakfast and drove to work, where I had my own drama to handle. As a project manager at Summit Industrial Solutions, I was used to putting out fires and solving complex problems under pressure. But today felt different. Today I was the one creating the problems instead of solving them. My assistant, Katie Morgan, knocked on my office door around 10 o'clock. In the morning, there is a woman here to see you, she said. She says it is personal. Brandon's ex-wife was younger than I had imagined, probably in her mid-30s, with a kind of quiet elegance that comes from old money rather than new success. She introduced herself as Elizabeth Whitaker and asked if we could speak privately. I wanted to thank you for those photos, she said once Katie had closed the door, and to let you know that you are not the only one Brandon has hurt. She opened her purse and pulled out a thick folder. I have been documenting his indiscretions for 2 years. Your wife is not his first, and she will not be his last. Men like Brandon view marriage as a challenge to overcome, not a commitment to uphold. I studied the photos she showed me. Brandon with different women in different restaurants, hotels, vacation spots. Always the same pattern. Expensive places, married women, elaborate deceptions. Claire was just his latest connection in a long line of victories over other men's marriages. What do you want from me? I asked. Help, she said simply. Brandon destroyed my life because he thought he was untouchable, rich, brilliant, charming. Who would believe a bitter ex-wife over a respected lawyer? But now there are 2 of us, 2 people who know what he really is. She left her contact information and copies of some of her evidence. After she left, I sat in my office staring at the photos, understanding for the first time that Claire was not just involved with Brandon. She was being used by a predator who had perfected the art of destroying marriages. This realization should have made me pity her. Instead, it made me even angrier. Claire was smart enough to see right through Brandon's game if she had wanted to. She chose to believe his lies because he made her feel special, desired, worth more than the ordinary life she had built with me. My phone rang. Claire's number. Brian, we need to talk, she said. Without preamble, can you come home for lunch? Is everything okay? Just please. I need to see you. I found her in our living room, still wearing her work clothes, but looking disheveled in a way that was completely unlike her. Claire had always been meticulous about her appearance, using her professional image as armor against the world. There are rumors going around about me at work, she said without looking directly at me. Nasty gossip about my relationship with Brandon Whitaker. I wanted you to hear it from me before someone else tells you. I sat across from her, keeping a carefully neutral expression. What kind of rumors? People are saying we are having an inappropriate relationship. It is completely false. It is ridiculous. Sure, Brandon and I work together on several cases, and I suppose some people misunderstood our professional relationship. Oh, really? She looked up at me, then searching my face for signs of suspicion. Of course, Brian. You know me. You know I would never. I know you have been working late a lot, I said quietly. I know you went on that getaway with him. I know you have been different lately. Different how? Distant. Like your mind is somewhere else with someone else. Claire's composure cracked slightly. This is exactly what I was afraid of. The rumors poison everything. Make you suspicious of me when you should be supporting me. I am the victim here. Brian, these people are trying to destroy my reputation because they are jealous of my success. It was a masterful performance. Claire had always been good at turning defense into offense, casting herself as the wronged party in any conflict. If I had not seen those messages and watched her lie to my face for months, I might have believed her. What do you need from me? I asked. Relief flooded her face. Just to trust me. Ignore the gossip you hear and trust that I am telling you the truth. Can you do that? Of course, I said, reaching out to take her hand. We are a team, Claire. We always have been. She squeezed my fingers, and for a moment I saw a glimpse of the woman I had married, the one who had believed in us, in our future together, in the life we were building. But then her phone buzzed with another message, and the moment was gone. I have to get back to work, she said, already standing up. This crisis is not going to manage itself. After she left, I sat alone in our living room, surrounded by 15 years of shared memories, wedding photos, vacation souvenirs, the accumulated debris of a life built together. Claire was fighting to preserve her double life, to keep both me and Brandon, to have her cake and eat it too. She had no idea I was 3 steps ahead of her, that while she was scrambling to contain a crisis, I was already preparing the next phase of her education. I opened my laptop and started typing an email to all the partners at Donovan and Klein. The subject line read, ethical concern regarding Brandon Whitaker and Claire Ellis. In the body of the message, I laid out everything I knew about their inappropriate relationship, complete with documentation, photos, and a timeline of their deception. I explained how they had used company resources for personal trips, how they had violated firm policies regarding relationships between partners and associates, and how their behavior had created a hostile work environment for other employees. Then I scheduled the email to be sent at 9 o'clock in the morning tomorrow, just before the weekly partners meeting. Claire thought she was fighting against rumors and gossip. Tomorrow she would learn the difference between speculation and proof. She would discover that her carefully constructed professional life was just as vulnerable as her marriage, and she would begin to understand that the husband she had dismissed as clueless and pathetic was actually the most dangerous adversary she had ever faced. I closed the laptop and went back to work on the Mustang. The engine was finally running smoothly, all the parts working in perfect harmony. Unlike my marriage, this was something I could actually fix, but the consequences I was currently dealing out could be just as satisfying as repairing. The email hit Donovan and Klein at exactly 9 o'clock in the morning on Tuesday morning, just as I had planned. At 9:30 in the Vea, Claire was calling me hysterical. Brian, something terrible has happened, she sobbed into the phone. Someone sent lies about me to the whole firm. Horrible lies about Brandon and me. They are saying we are having an inappropriate relationship, that we are using company money for personal trips. It was all fabricated, but they are taking it seriously. Calm down, I said, though my heart was pounding with satisfaction. Who would do such a thing? I do not know. Maybe Brandon's ex-wife or someone jealous of my career. But Brian, they suspended me pending an investigation. They froze my case, access my email, everything. 15 years of hard work, and they treat me like this over anonymous gossip. Anonymous. If only she knew. I am coming home, I said. We'll figure this out together. I found Claire pacing in our kitchen like a caged animal, her phone pressed to her ear as she spoke in urgent whispers to someone. Probably Brandon. She hung up when she saw me and collapsed into my arms. Her professional composure had finally shattered. Completely. They are destroying my life, she whispered against my shoulder. Everything I worked for, everything I built, gone because of lies and rumors. I held her while she cried, stroking her hair and whispering soft, reassuring words. A part of me, a small, fading part, felt genuine sympathy for her pain, but the larger part, the one that had been growing stronger ever since I discovered her betrayal, felt nothing but a cold, calm satisfaction. What did Brandon say? I asked. She pulled back, wiping her eyes. He is suspended too. They are treating him even worse because he is a partner. The executive committee is talking about forcing him out permanently. Maybe that is for the best, I said carefully. If there are rumors about you, to a little distance might help clear the air. Claire's eyes flashed with something that looked like panic. It is not that simple. Brandon and I have been working together for years. We have ongoing cases, clients who specifically requested our collaboration. Separating us now will damage both our careers, even if it saves your marriage. The question hung in the air between us. Claire stared at me, and I could see her calculating, trying to figure out what I knew or suspected. Finally, she looked away. Our marriage is not in danger, she said softly. Is it? That depends, I said, on whether you tell me the truth about Brandon. I told you, Brian. I kept my voice soft but firm. I'm not stupid. I have seen the way you look at your phone when you think I am not watching. I noticed how many nights you worked late, how many weekend meetings you had. I saw the credit card statements for restaurants I have never been to, hotels I have never stayed at. She froze. What are you saying? I am saying that if you are involved with Brandon Whitaker, now would be a good time to tell me before I find out some other way. For a moment I thought she was actually going to confess. Her face went through a dozen different emotions: fear, guilt, defiance, calculation. But in the end, she chose to dig deeper into her lies. I cannot believe you are accusing me of something like this, she said, her voice hardening. After 15 years of marriage, you think I would throw it all away for an office connection? You think I am that shallow, that selfish? I think you are human, I said. I think Brandon is charming and brilliant, and he makes you feel things that maybe I do not make you feel anymore. I think you got swept up in something that felt exciting and new, and now it is spiraling out of control. Claire studied my face, searching for signs of what I really knew. And if I were, hypothetically, what would you do? I would want to know why, I said. Honestly, I would want to understand what I did wrong, what we could do to fix it. I would want to fight for our marriage instead of watching it die. She softened slightly, perhaps hearing the genuine pain in my voice. Brian and I. Her phone rang. Brandon's name flashed on the screen, and just like that, the moment was broken. She looked at the phone, then at me, torn between these two worlds. Answer it, I said. He is probably scared, too. You should support each other through this crisis. She answered on the fourth ring. Brandon. Yes. I told him about the suspension. No, he does not. What do you mean? More proof. I watched the color drain from her face as she listened to what Brandon was telling her. Her free hand gripped the kitchen counter so tightly, her knuckles were white. How is that possible? She whispered. We were so careful. Okay. Yes. I will meet you at the usual place. She hung up and turned to me with desperate eyes. I have to go. Brandon found out who was spreading these lies about us. We have to figure out how to fight back. Claire, I said as she headed for the door. Whatever happens, whatever you did, we can get through this, but only if you are honest with me. She paused, her hand on the doorknob. For a second I thought she was finally going to tell me the truth. Instead, she said, I love you, Brian. Whatever else happens, remember that I love you. Then she was gone, leaving me alone with the wreckage of our conversation and the satisfaction of knowing that phase 3 was about to begin. I had given her multiple chances to confess, to be honest, to choose our marriage over her involvement. She had chosen Brandon every single time. Now, she was going to have to live with the consequences of that choice. I opened my laptop and began drafting the next round of emails. This time, the recipients would be Claire's book club, our neighbors, our old college friends, everyone in our social circle who saw us as the perfect couple. The subject line read, "The truth about my marriage." In the message, I laid it all out. The betrayal, the lies, the elaborate deception Claire had been maintaining for months. I included selected text messages between her and Brandon, photos from their trips, the documentation of their involvement. I wrote it in a tone of wounded bewilderment, like a man who had just discovered his wife's betrayal and needed his friend's support. I do not know how to handle this, I wrote. The woman I have loved for 15 years has been living a double life, and I feel like a fool for not seeing it sooner. I am not writing this for sympathy, but because I cannot bear the thought of pretending everything is normal when my world has been turned upside down. I scheduled the emails to go out at 6 o'clock in the evening, right around dinner time, when people would be checking their phones and sharing the news with their families. Tomorrow morning, everyone we knew would understand exactly what kind of woman Claire really was. She had built her entire identity on being brilliant, respected, admired. She had cultivated an image of total success, the perfect marriage, the brilliant career, the enviable lifestyle. In a few hours, that image would be destroyed forever. My phone buzzed with a text from Elizabeth Whitaker. Saw the news about the suspensions. Well done. Brandon's lawyer called this morning to settle our revised divorce case. Apparently, he does not want things getting any messier. I replied, I am just getting started. Claire and Brandon thought their biggest problem was the professional fallout from their involvement. They had no idea their personal lives were about to get just as complicated. I spent the rest of the afternoon in my workshop preparing the final phase of Claire's education. She had made her choice. Now she was going to learn what it really cost. The emails went out at 6 o'clock in the evening, right when Claire was meeting Brandon at the usual spot they had established for their secret meeting. I pictured them huddled together in a coffee shop or a hotel bar, trying to figure out who was targeting them and how to save their careers. They were asking the wrong questions. The real question was whether they would still want each other when everything else fell apart. My phone started ringing at 6:15 in the evening. First my brother-in-law Chris Ellis, then our neighbor Mrs. Barbara Jenkins, then Samantha Reed, Claire's college roommate. The news was spreading through our social network like wildfire, and everyone wanted to know if the story was true, if I was okay, if there was anything they could do to help. I played the role of the devastated husband to perfection, shocked, hurt, but trying to be mature about the whole situation. I did not badmouth Claire or Brandon directly. I did not need to. The evidence spoke volumes for itself, and people could draw their own conclusions. I just want to understand how this happened. I told Samantha Reed, who was crying on the other end of the line. Claire and I had problems, sure, but I thought we were working on them. I never imagined she would. I mean, 15 years of marriage has to count for something, right? No. Oh, Brian. Samantha sobbed. I am so sorry. I cannot believe Claire would do this to you. You were such a good man. You deserve so much better. The calls continued until nearly 9 o'clock in the evening when Claire finally came home. She walked into the house like a woman facing her execution, her phone clenched in her hand and her face streaked with tears. You did this, she said without preamble. You sent those emails to everyone. You destroyed my reputation, my friendships, my entire life. How could you do something so cruel? I looked up from my newspaper, the very picture of calm and reason. I told the truth, Claire. That is all I did, the truth. She laughed bitterly. You aired our private life for the whole world to see. You humiliated me in front of people I have known for decades. You turned me into the villain in some twisted revenge fantasy. You turned yourself into the villain, I said calmly. I merely documented it. She stared at me, and I could see her finally understanding that the man she had married, the predictable, loyal, easily manipulated husband, no longer existed. Who are you? She whispered. I am the man whose wife has been betraying him for 6 months, I replied. I am the man who was lied to, deceived, and mocked by the person he trusted most in the world. I am the man who finally decided to stop being a victim. Claire slumped into an armchair, her defiance crumbling. Brian, please. Yes, I made mistakes. Yes, I got involved with Brandon when I should not have, but did. You have to destroy everything? My job, my friends, my reputation. Was that really necessary? Was it necessary to destroy our marriage? I counted. Was it necessary to lie to me for 6 months? Was it necessary to plan a future with another man while pretending to love me? She flinched as if I had slapped her. How do you know about that? About the downtown apartment you and Brandon were looking at, about the vacation you were planning for Christmas, about the fact that you told him you were going to ask me for a divorce after the holidays so you would not ruin your family gatherings. Claire turned pale. Those details had been in some of the most recent text messages I had found, conversations about their future together once they had both extricated themselves from their current situations. You were spying on me, she said accusatorily. I was trying to figure out why my wife had become a stranger, I corrected. Do you want to know what hurt the most? It was not the involvement itself. People make mistakes. Marriages go through rough patches. It was the way you talked about me to him, how you laughed at me, mocked me, treated me like some poor idiot who deserved to be betrayed. Tears streamed down her face. I never meant for you to see those messages. It was just we were just venting our frustration. It did not mean anything. It meant everything I said. It showed me who you really are when you think no one is watching, and it showed me that the woman I loved, the woman I built my life around, does not really exist anymore. Claire wiped her eyes and tried to compose herself. So, what now? You got your revenge. You destroyed my career and turned all our friends against me. Are you satisfied? Are you going to keep seeing Brandon? The question caught her off guard. What? It is a simple question, Claire. Now that everything is out in the open, now that you do not have to hide anymore, are you going to keep seeing Brandon Whitaker? She looked away. It is complicated. It really is not. You either want to be married to me or you want to be with him. You cannot have both anymore. Brandon and I need time to figure things out, she said carefully. With everything that has happened at work, with the investigation and the suspensions, we need to see how that resolves before making any major decisions about our personal lives. I nodded slowly. So you're choosing him. I am not choosing anyone right now. I am trying to salvage what is left of my career and my life. Your life with him. She met my gaze then, and I saw a flash of the old Claire, the ambitious, calculating woman who had climbed the ranks in a male-dominated profession by being smarter and tougher than everyone around her. Yes, she said simply. My life with him. At least it was finally honest. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at our quiet suburban street. The neighbors were probably all talking about us right now, sharing the gossip, taking sides, wondering how they had missed the signs of our marriage collapsing. There is something else you should know, I said, without turning around. Brandon's ex-wife has been documenting his indiscretions for years. You are not his first connection, Claire. You are just the latest in a long line of married women he has pursued and discarded. That is a lie. Elizabeth Whitaker has photos, receipts, testimonies from other women. Brandon has a pattern and you fit it perfectly. Brilliant, married, vulnerable to the attention of a powerful man. He probably used the same lines on you that he used on all the others. Claire's voice was small when she spoke. You are lying. I turned to face her. Call Elizabeth and ask her yourself. Her number is in the directory. Or better yet, ask Brandon about Rachel Adams or Kayla Morgan or Sarah Klein. Ask him how many other marriages he has destroyed for sport. The names hit her like physical blows. I could see her recognizing them, probably remembering Brandon mentioning them in passing, maybe even having met some at firm events. He loves me, she whispered. He loves the chase, I corrected. He loves the challenge of taking something that belongs to someone else. But once he has it, once the thrill wears off, he will move on to the next connection, just like he always has. Claire stood up abruptly. I do not have to listen to this. You are just trying to hurt me because you are angry. I am trying to stop you from making the biggest mistake of your life, I said. But if you want to learn it the hard way, that is your choice. She headed for the stairs, probably to pack a bag and go to Brandon's place. At the bottom of the steps, she paused. For what it is worth, she said without looking back, I really did love you once before everything got so complicated. I know, I replied. That is what makes all this so tragic. She went upstairs and I heard her moving around in our bedroom, opening drawers and closets. 20 minutes later, she came back down with a suitcase and her laptop bag. I will stay at Brandon's until we figure out what happens next, she said. My lawyer will contact you about the separation papers. Claire, I called out as she reached the door. When all this falls apart, and it will, do not come back here looking for forgiveness. Some bridges cannot be rebuilt once they are burned. She looked at me one last time, her face a mixture of defiance and uncertainty. Maybe some bridges deserve to be burned. Then she was gone, leaving me alone in the house we had shared for 15 years. I walked through the empty rooms looking at all the photos and memories of our life together. Tomorrow, I would probably take them down, pack them away, begin the process of erasing Claire from my daily existence. But tonight I just sat in my workshop and worked on the Mustang. The engine was purring now, all the parts working in perfect harmony. It had taken months of patient work, careful attention to detail, and a willingness to replace broken parts that could not be fixed. Some things could be repaired, others had to be rebuilt from scratch, and some things, like my marriage to Claire Ellis, simply had to be let die so something better could take their place. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Saw the news about your wife. If you ever want to grab a beer and commiserate over broken trust, give me a call. Matt, Elizabeth's brother. I smiled and saved the number. Maybe it was time to start building new relationships instead of mourning old ones. Claire had made her choice. Now I was free to make mine. The Mustang's engine hummed in the background as I began planning the next chapter of my life. A chapter that did not include a wife who had betrayed our marriage or the wreckage of broken promises. For the first time in months, I felt genuinely optimistic about the future. And it, this story really stayed with me. I believe your self-worth should always come first in any relationship. Setting clear boundaries is an act of self-respect, not selfishness. We can't control others, but we can choose to take responsibility for our own peace. Healing takes courage and time, yet it's the most important work we do for ourselves. Be gentle with your heart while you're processing pain or disappointment. You deserve honesty, loyalty, and real love from those closest to you. Sometimes choosing calm over continued hurt is the wisest decision you can make. I hope this encourages you to reflect deeply on the relationships in your life. Remember, you are worthy of a life filled with genuine respect and inner peace. If you like the stories, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.